Good evening, I'm John Carter and welcome to Poland Daily. A video has appeared on the internet of a 15-year-old boy with a cross in his hand attempting to stop the LGBT parade marching through the city of Płock. The teenager, Jakub Bauera, has stopped by the police, but the boy's gesture has caused a wave of support. There was also plenty of hate and criticism levelled at the teenager.
Jakub Bauera explained that his gesture was done in reference to the actions of Father Ignacy Skorupka during the Warsaw Battle with the Bolsheviks in 1920.
The idea of blocking the Equality March with a cross in my hand came to me when I saw the information about the parade in Płock for the first time. Making a gesture similar to that of Father Ignacy Skorupka during the Warsaw Battle with the Bolsheviks in 1920 should give people food for thought and make them reflect. At one point, I gave up this idea because of social consequences. I was afraid of how people would react to it. However, when I saw the miraculous image of Our Lady of Częstochowa with a rainbow halo during the Equality March in Płock, I decided that I had to do it. I asked for a cross from a priest in a Płock parish. The priest was afraid of possible profanation of the Holy Cross by atheists, but gave me the cross nonetheless. I wanted as many people as possible to see my gesture. I wanted it to make them reflect and talk about the issue at hand. This symbol is extremely important and has been recognized by the Pope in Castel Gandolfo. It is a picture showing priest Skorupka who, with this cross, stops this red plague. It is a very good symbol for these times, referring to Archbishop Jędrzejewski, who compared the rainbow plague to the red plague and earlier the black plague, which tried to control and take over our hearts and souls.
Most internet users considered the gesture of the 15-year-old to be a heroic act, although there were voices trying to diminish the whole situation or even ridicule Jakub Bauera.
If we were to belittle all 15-year-olds just because they are 15 and suggest their actions have no meaning, this would lead to absurdity. Let me remind you that in the Warsaw Uprising, a very large part of the insurgents were the so-called grey ranks, i.e. 12, 13, 14-year-old boys. A typical 15-year-old was no one extraordinary back then. In any case, I would not look at this behavior only from the perspective of the person's age, but look at the meaning and message that accompanies it.
The 15-year-old ensures that Saturday's initiative was his own idea. Jakub Bauera is a councillor at the Płock Youth Council.
Despite the controversy regarding the misuse of government-funded flights taken by the Speaker of the Polish Parliament, the ruling party has not lost support. According to a survey conducted by Ibris for the newspaper Rzeczpospolita, the Law and Justice Party are currently on course to take 41.2% of the vote, which will give them 243 mandates and a majority in Parliament.
The opposition, divided into three blocs, remains far behind the Law and Justice Party. According to a survey conducted by Ibris for the Rzeczpospolita newspaper, the Civic Coalition would get 27% of the votes, while the left-wing alliance would get 11.6%. The Polish People's Party, together with the Kukiz 15 movement, would get 6.5%. The Confederation and non-partisan local government activists would not cross the electoral threshold, receiving 2.8% and 1.8% of the votes.
Argentine voters soundly rejected President Mauricio Macri's austere economic policies in the primary elections on Sunday, raising serious questions about his chances of re-election in October. A coalition backing opposition candidate Alberto Fernandez, whose running mate is former President Cristina Kirchner, led by a wider-than-expected 14 percentage points with 47.1% of the votes.
Voters were given a clear choice: complete the course of painful austerity measures under Macri or choose to return to interventionist Peronist economics. It hurts that today we did not have all the support that we hoped for, but tomorrow we will continue working and making ourselves accountable. We are now all the more responsible for getting this country ahead. So, get some sleep and let's start working tomorrow morning. Thank you very much. The opposition candidate, Alberto Fernandez, is trying to distance himself from the former government of his current running mate, the left-wing populist Cristina Kirchner. We haven't come to restore a regime. We have come to create a new Argentina for the best opportunities to end with this era of lies and to create a better horizon for Argentines into the future. Analysts predicted a slide in Argentine stock and bond prices if Fernandez achieved a lead of more than 5 to 6 percentage points. In the end, the lead turned out to be more than 14 points. Market analysts now fear an escalating economic crisis. The truth is, it seems to me that Argentines haven't learned much in all these years. I think a hard Kirchnerism is going to come back to the government, which I think is bad news. Equally, President Macri is a bad manager of the economy who applied a gradualism that didn't really work. Meanwhile, Brazilian President Jair Bolsonaro commented on the result of Sunday's election, saying a migration crisis along Brazil's southern border, similar to the one along its northern border with Venezuela, could develop if the leftist ticket led by Alberto Fernandez and Cristina Kirchner wins the general election. Don't forget what happened in yesterday's Argentine elections. The gang of former President Cristina Kirchner, which is the same as the gang of Dilma Rousseff, Nicolas Maduro, Hugo Chavez and Fidel Castro, gave signs of life. If these leftists return to power in Argentina, we could have a similar situation as we have with Venezuela, from which masses of people are fleeing to Brazil. And we don't want that. Our Argentine brothers fleeing here. This is a possibility if the results of the elections held yesterday are confirmed in the general election in October. In order to win the presidency outright, a candidate needs at least 45% of the vote. The first round of the election will take place on October 27th. If there is no clear winner, voters will return for a runoff on November 24th.
The government crisis in Italy is deepening, with Minister of the Interior Matteo Salvini convinced that the coalition government between his Lega party and the Five Star Movement has ceased to exist. Today, Italian politicians return to Rome from their vacation for a meeting ahead of a session in the Senate dedicated to setting a timetable for handling the government crisis.
Matteo Salvini has spent the last couple of days in a number of seaside resorts in what seems to be a combination of a vacation and election campaign. Speaking to the press, Salvini stated that he believes it to be unlikely for a new coalition government to be formed by the Socialist Party and the Five Star Movement, and that a snap election is the only way forward. The Italian president, Sergio Mattarella, is in charge of this situation. It seems clear to me that there is no longer a government, there is no longer a majority, and if someone believes that Italy can be governed for years by former Prime Minister Matteo Renzi and the Five Star Movement founder Beppe Grillo, maybe they think it's possible because of an August heat stroke. The only concrete, sincere, transparent, effective, democratic solution is to get Italians to vote. We are in a democracy. It should be the best thing in the world to get citizens to vote. Political analysts claim that by calling for a snap election, Salvini wants to capitalize on the high level of support for his party in opinion polls, likely to be enough to guarantee him the position of Prime Minister in the next government.
Well, Salvini, it's very clear what Salvini wants. He's been in campaign mode, really, since before the European Parliament elections in May, and he's stayed in campaign mode ever since. His popularity has surged since the government was formed on his very hardline stance on immigration. He has this man of the people image, which Italians, well, a lot of Italians seem to like very much. And he wants to cash in on that popularity. The League is now by far Italy's most popular party, and Salvini's must have some concern that, you know, these magic moments can come and go. And he wants to make sure it doesn't go before he can, you know, capitalise, hopefully trigger elections and come to power on his own.
However, some voters hope that Salvini and the leader of the Five Star Movement will be able to reach an agreement.
I think that Di Maio and Salvini should try to get along with each other. Five Star have achieved a lot and the economy is doing much better now, particularly with their citizen income policies. And Salvini as well has achieved a lot. Sicily was invaded by migrants. This isn't a question of racism, but there are too few jobs available for us, and if we take in all these people, there will be no more work left. I think Salvini and Di Maio are two great people who should make peace for the good good of Italy.
Prendiamo queste persone, qua è finito il lavoro per tutti noi.
Thank you very much for joining me here this evening at Poland Daily. I'm John Carter. Stay tuned after the break for Poland Daily Weather. It's followed by the business, culture, history and finally the travel.
Good evening and welcome to Poland Daily Weather. Tonight we can expect showers in most regions in Poland. The only exceptions will be Rzeszów, Szczecin, Koszalin and Gdańsk. We can expect thunderstorms in Lublin, Opole, Katowice and Warsaw. The temperatures will vary between 15 and 19 degrees centigrade. Tomorrow will also be a very rainy day for most of the country. The only exceptions will be the southern parts of Poland with partly cloudy skies in Rzeszów, Katowice and Kraków, with temperatures varying between 29 and 31 degrees. Zielona Góra can also expect clear skies and a temperature of 24 degrees. Lublin will be the warmest city at 31 degrees and can expect showers, while the coldest city will be Koszalin at 23 degrees and also rainy skies. The temperature in Warsaw will be 27 degrees and we can expect scattered showers in our capital. That is all for tonight. I invite you to join us later for Poland Daily Business.
You're watching Poland Daily Business Edition. Art of the Deal is a book written by Donald Trump as a businessman, and the question whether we see a practical application of the theories that are in this book in the trade negotiations with China. Artur Wróblewski of Lazarski University. Can you see any similarities between those books and how Donald Trump is negotiating with Xi Jinping?
President Donald Trump is playing hard, but let's remember that to some extent what we see now unfolding is nothing new. The same situation happened in 1980s, and actually the architect of that plan in 1980s was the same person. His name is Robert Lighthizer. Robert Lighthizer is the American special representative for trade. He's representing this new trade policy for the White House regarding Republic of China. And Robert Lighthizer now is 30 years older, but 30 years ago in Plaza Hotel in New York, he signed agreement. It was later amended, supplemented with so-called Louvre Agreement in 1987. And this agreement was trying to force the Federal Republic of Germany, Japan, France, United Kingdom to actually impose on itself self-restraints regarding export to the United States. It was 1985, and it was successful.
And that was the person who broke Japanese empire conquering United States. Japanese bought the automotive company, they bought Columbia movie production.
Exactly, and they were producing many cars and electronic stuff. Also, Federal Republic of Germany was also having this trade balance good for itself, but it was unfortunately not good for the United States. The deficit was growing in the mutual trade. That's why United States, Ronald Reagan, was trying to push hard to restore balance in the trade. Of course, it ended badly for Japan. There was lost decade in 1990s and the slower growth and many problems. But it was actually successful strategy. And now we see the repetition of this strategy from 1980s. And to some extent, President Donald Trump is legitimate in its claims that there were unfair trade conditions between Republic of China and the United States. Why? Because, for example, China is using subsidies to subsidize its national industries, for example, state industries. In addition, China is using this industrial spying, or is forcing American companies which are present in the Republic of China to transfer its technology, or they are using other not really legitimate, not even legal in light of World Trade Organization rules.
United States' Treasury Secretary accused China of manipulating the exchange of the renminbi.
Currency value, exactly, which is, of course, beginning of a kind of currency war, which we see now unfolding next to our trade war, which has already started over 1 year ago. To some extent, I would not agree with this currency manipulation charge. Why? Because until 2016, China, Republic of China, and United States had something like modified fixed exchange rate. What it means? That China was to some extent artificially maintaining the same exchange rate. For example, when the money was losing value, they were in United States, they were buying US dollars, helping to stabilize the value of American dollar. After 2016, they said, okay, now we are not going to interfere in this. Let's market forces operate. Let's market forces allow to operate and to define the value of US dollars, for example. In addition to this, I believe that we see, again, very dramatic situation between those two countries, but soon we will learn, maybe in September, when there will be a next round of negotiations after the Shanghai round, which failed last week. But we will see good news in September or later in this year. Why? Because this is a marriage of convenience to some extent. Washington needs Beijing, and Beijing needs Washington. Why? Because, for example, China owns American public debt, foreign public debt, in 27%. They are buying American bonds, and they have already American bonds for $1.1 trillion US dollars. So to some extent, those countries are like intermarried. They have to tolerate each other, because if China wants to get rid of its of this situation, it could cause chaos in the United States, and nobody needs this chaos, especially Chinese, who are now heading for slowdown in economic growth. So they need Washington badly, but Washington needs Beijing badly too.
Right. Will China bend to the American demands of opening market, of stopping the industrial spy, of stopping the theft of the American jobs?
I think we will see a compromise soon, so that both sides which will save faces. However, I don't believe that China will really stop technological, industrial spying, but something will happen soon, because farmers in the United States are already suffering. They got already twice, like subsidies, national assistance to help them. 12 and I believe 16 billion US dollars goes into hands of US farmers to help them with the situation, because now they don't have a market for its corn products or soybean. So they have to do something.
The same considers beef and pork.
Beef, wheat, of course. So chickens, and so President Donald Trump has to solve this problem before end of the year. Why? Because next year it's election year, and he's running for to be re-elected. So he needs farmers' votes.
This is what
badly.
Chinese are counting on. They think, okay, we will wait a little bit more, and then we will either have new president, or this one will have to agree to our terms. The prolonging of this is a civilization that has 3,000 years. So what the year to
They are
4 years doesn't
patient,
matter.
very
Yes.
patient, so they have time. And this is for example, what Iranians are counting for, that there will be a new president and the nuclear agreement from 2015 from Vienna will be restored. But let's remember, there's always possibility that the next president will be
Even worse.
Worse, exactly.
From their point of view. Artur Wróblewski from Łazarski University. Sir, thank you very much for
Thank you very much.
participating in this show. And that was it for tonight's Poland Daily Business.
Hello, and welcome to Poland Daily Business Weather. Tomorrow will be a rainy day for most areas of the country, with showers stretching from the seacoast to the Świętokrzyskie Województwo. The only places that can expect to see partly cloudy skies will be Zielona Góra, Katowice, Kraków, and Rzeszów. The temperature will vary between 23 to 26 degrees in the north and 24 to 31 degrees in the south. Warsaw will see showers and can expect a temperature of 27 degrees. In Europe, we can expect sunny skies in Athens, Bucharest, Sofia, and Kiev, and temperatures of 32 to 35 degrees. Warsaw, Vilnius, Oslo, Moscow, and Minsk will see rain and temperatures of 17 to 24 degrees. The rest of the continent can expect partly cloudy skies. The coldest spots will be Dublin and Oslo, and the warmest cities will be Rome and Bucharest at 35 degrees. Thank you for joining us, and I wish you all a very pleasant evening.
Good evening. My name is Emilia Pobłocka. Welcome to a special episode of the program Gwiazdy Republiki. It's special because we're going to talk about an amazing project with a star cast. There was nothing like it before in Poland. I think it would be very hard to invite over 300 actors who took part in this project, but some of them will definitely appear in the next episodes of the show. Today, my guest is the initiator and an author of a blog about media, Maciej Budzich, a blogger and a man of the year in terms of the Polish internet. Good evening.
Good evening. Thank you for inviting me.
Thank you so much for accepting my invitation. I think it would be okay if I say that you're the star of the internet and the initiator of this amazing project.
I am the co-author of the Audio Bible Super Production project. Two people from two different worlds met and created this. I am from the internet world, and Krzysztof Czeczot is from the art and culture world. He's a producer and a director. We met some time ago and combined our love for audiobooks. We thought that we should do something that no one did before in this scale and quality.
W takiej skali i w takiej jakości.
Let's see a fragment of the film that will show us what we're going to talk about, and that is the Audio Bible. Let's see it.
O Biblii audio, bardzo proszę, zobaczmy.
The Audio Bible Super Production, the biggest radio play in Europe, starring Jerzy Trela, Małgorzata Korzuchowska, Wojciech Malajkat, Anna Seniuk, Piotr Frączewski, Adam Woronowicz, Krystyna Janda, Cezary Żak, Miłogos Ręczek and Roman Kłosowski. 500 actors and amateurs join the cast and support the production of an audio adaptation of the most important book in the world. Let's meet on bibliaaudio.pl.
But it's not the end. You still have a lot of work to do. How many recordings do you have so far?
We have recorded over 40 hours so far. We are almost halfway there.
So there's going to be 110 hours of recordings in general, right?
Yes, there is going to be 110 hours of recordings, the Old, the New Testament, and 150 psalms. We are going to sing some of them. It's going to sound very good. You can listen to Stanisław Sojka singing the first psalm.
Szczęśliwy mąż, który nie idzie za radą występnym, nie wchodzi na drogę grzeszników i nie siada w kole szyderców, lecz ma upodobanie w prawie Pana.
Did you organize a psalm contest?
Tak. Można się zgłaszać, jeżeli...
Anyone can send an application. Even a musical group can apply and try. We'll give our requirements. I can tell our viewers a little secret. Michał Lorenz is writing a psalm for us, so we have a full artistic range of music authors. There are many things going on, and there are still more and more ahead of us.
No, będzie się dużo działo i jeszcze wiele historii przed nami, myślę.
Just like we said, over 110 hours of recordings, 300 actors and 200 amateurs. Was there a moment of a crisis where you weren't so sure that you were going to make it?
Not really, because sure, it's a great project and a wonderful idea, but you need to stay close to the ground.
You need to keep the money in mind.
Praca i tak, no finanse to jest coś, co nam oczywiście jest dla nas problemem, ale idzie nieźle. To wszystko też dzięki Państwa wsparciu.
Finances are of course an issue, but it is going well. It is largely thanks to the support of the people. The budget for the project is 1.9 million zloty, which seems like a lot at first for the radio play to have the budget of almost 2 million zloty. We managed to gather 900,000 already, thanks to the support of all our listeners. Because of that, we are able to realize more and more books of the Bible. I recently looked at our numbers, and we have reached the first million of people who downloaded the audiobooks, and it's only the data we are capable of measuring, since we can't determine how many times did everyone listen to the once downloaded file. You can find them at bibliaaudio.pl. Anyone can support our project either by donating money or helping us record. Between us, we are saying that we are building the digital monument for Christianity. The idea is that we're building it brick by brick, and anyone can join and see. That is our goal. Due to the fact that it's free, it's opening up a lot of doors for us, and I am positive that we wouldn't get such famous names otherwise, and such a number of good words from all over. We have a lot of wonderful stories about it.
Taką wspaniałą przychylność ludzi, odbiorców do tego. No, to jest dużo fantastycznych opowieści.
Pokazujecie też, to jest taka niedawna...
We should also mention the amazing story of Krzysztof Globisz, who, after a stroke, had to face aphasia and who recorded some voiceovers for your project. As you showed, nothing is impossible. Let's listen.
Bierze udział w nagraniu Biblii Audio.
Słuchaj, o Boże, mojego wołania. Zważ na moją modlitwę. Wołam do Ciebie z krańców ziemi, gdy słabnie moje serce.
A truly beautiful and touching story. Krzysztof Globisz read here one of the Psalms, but the part he read was in some way about his struggle with his illness as well.
To są takie momenty, które na naszej tej drodze produkowania Biblii Audio, o których czasem mi też trudno mówić.
These are the moments in the production of the audio Bible which are a bit difficult to talk about, but also the ones we didn't really expect. Mr. Globisz was on our list for a long time, and we delicately asked him a few times if he could join us. After the stroke, he's fighting with aphasia. This means that he has to learn anew how to speak and read. The way he speaks, his brain and hearing are affected. He's in the role because what your viewers heard was from many of the rehearsals, when he not only tried to read the song correctly, but also act at the same time. He tried to pronounce the words correctly. We were present at the rehearsals. It was of course a struggle against all that limits him, but it was acting too. These are magical moments when an actor commits to his role and it works out perfectly. We didn't really have to change or edit much. We know it because Mr. Krzysztof Globisz confirmed it for us himself.
No i myślę, że też wiemy o tym, bo pan Krzysztof Globisz to zatwierdzał, że to też wyszło dobrze.
Another example is Mr. Roman Kłosowski, who is no longer a working actor, but took part in the project nonetheless. You came to his apartment and you were able to record a part of the Holy Bible. What was it like?
Jak to wyglądało?
Tak, namowy pana Romana Kłosowskiego trwały też dosyć długo.
It took some time to convince Mr. Kłosowski as well. Mr. Roman doesn't see very well due to his illness, so he stopped acting. For an actor, the lack of vision is a huge problem. The convincing took long, and what's interesting, Mr. Kłosowski's neighbor recorded his lines for him. Then he listened to it for 4 straight days.
Chodził z dyktafonem przy uchu.
That's how he memorized the text?
Wykuł rolę na blachę. Co ciekawe, też na nagraniach okazało się, że sąsiadka tam pomyliła się.
Yes, he knew all the lines by heart. It later turned out that the neighbor made some small mistakes here and there, and we had to make some changes during the recording. We also made an exception, since we always record in a studio, wherein for Mr. Roman, we prepared an improvised studio in his apartment. And there was also this magical moment when the actor goes into the role. There is this magical silence. Blind Roman Kłosowski goes into the role of blind Simon, and it flows. It works as well. It was very interesting to watch an actor who, somewhat at the end of his career, suddenly finds new strength. You can see how he's suddenly 10 years younger. He's excited, he's happy. We read some of the internet comments to Mr. Roman. It's great, because while we're still working on the project...
Totalnie tym podniecony, zadowolony z tego. Czytaliśmy panu Romanowi komentarze z internetu.
Bardzo Państwu dziękuję, że byliście dzisiaj.
It was truly a great conversation and an incredible project. Maciek, thank you very much for being our guest. Thank you for being with us. Thank you for watching and see you next week.
Bądźcie Państwo z nami. Dziękuję za dziś i do zobaczenia za tydzień.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Poland Daily History. Today we are visiting the Pawiak Prison Museum in Warsaw. This prison is one of the most famous places for Polish martyrdom during the Second World War, where 100,000 prisoners passed through these gates during the war, of which 47,000 were murdered. This prison is one of the most well-known sites of Polish martyrdom during the Second World War, with around 100,000 prisoners passing through its gates during the war, and 37,000 of them were murdered. Join us as we explore the history of one of the most brutal aspects of the German occupation. So ever since some of the members of the Polish underground were arrested and put into this prison, I can imagine them taking a very strong interest in this prison. I was wondering what kind of information were they able to extract from it, and how easy was the communication between prisoners here and the leadership of the Polish underground?
Sprawa komunikacji więźniów Pawiaka, tak członków konspiracji, jak i osób niezrzeszonych.
The matter of communication with the outside world by the prisoners of Pawiak was quite a difficult one. At first, it was relatively easy to convey information gathered by the Germans on Polish prisoners by the Polish prison guards, who served for the first few years of the occupation. Later, when the ghetto borders were closed and the Germans sent their own guard crew, contact with the outside world got more complicated. Until November 1940, the prisoners could simply write a grips, a short message written on a very small piece of paper, and throw it on the other side of the prison wall when on a walk at the courtyard. Such grips, found by someone on the other side, was then taken to the prisoner's family, fellow members of conspiracy, or a commander of the proper resistance unit. Since November 1940, when the Germans closed the ghetto, these messages had to be smuggled outside by members of the conspiracy network created inside the Pawiak prison. The network was established on the verge of the year 1940, when the underground service for Poland's victory, the precursor of the Home Army, made contact with the Polish Guards. It resulted in enlisting of some of the Polish Guards in the conspiracy, many of whom served before the war, but also the function prisoners, so those who worked in the prison workshop, infirmary, laundry and kitchen. These prisoners could reach a lot of the inmates, and they helped them smuggle the small pieces of paper outside. The Polish inmates usually wrote on them about the status of the German investigations, but also about the conditions inside Pawiak and how the Gestapo treated them. Often the gripses had personal messages, which were a way of bringing some consolation to the families worried about their jailed relatives. The history of the conspiracy network alone is very interesting. Established between 1939 and 1940, the network grew systematically. Apart from the strictly military network run by the Service for Poland's Victory and later the Home Army, there was also the division subordinate to the underground government and other smaller divisions of the smaller conspiracy groups, which tried to enlist their own representatives inside the prison, usually among the prison guards. There was also the Association of Care for Prisoners, which once worked against the Tsar occupiers and was reinstated to help the Polish prisoners in German prisons. The conspiracy network, or should I say several networks, worked continuously until the eradication of the prison in July 1944. Of course, the Germans tried to dismantle them and cut them off from the outside world. Once on the verge of 1939 and 1940, they were very close to achieving that goal. They sent agents to the Pawiak prison, which worked as a group called the Supreme London Intelligence. These agents infiltrated the conspiracy network of the Union of Armed Struggle. They took control of some of the prison guards, demanding copies of some of the messages leaving the prison. In the beginning, to earn the other inmates' trust, the agents initiated help for other prisoners and attempted escapes. Later, as a result of their work, many Polish guards were arrested or killed. The Polish underground got wind of the possible infiltration, and on August 1, 1942, the German agent known as Hammer was executed by Poles on the order of the underground state. In front of the guards, he acted as Colonel Baczyński and introduced himself as the special agent sent by the commander of the Home Army. He brought a lot of pain and misery to the Polish conspiracy inside Pawiak. The discovery of the agent led to the entire reconstruction of the network and the change in its name. From 1943, it took on the codename Kratka or Bars. The group mainly focused on organizing escapes, which are also worth talking about.
Rolą owej komórki była m.in. organizacja ucieczek z więzienia.
Despite the harsh and brutal prison regime in the Pawiak prison, the Polish resistance movement did manage to form a network within the prison walls. Next up, we will ask Mr. Bijak about the methods the inmates used in order to help each other to communicate with each other and improve their chances of survival. So I can imagine a lot of effort was exerted into communication with outside of the prison. I was wondering also, what about within the prison? Were there any communications being established, and how would one go about it?
Komórka konspiracyjna, komórka więzienna działająca tutaj.
Initially, the networks worked more on connecting the prisoners with themselves and with the outside world. They did so using the small pieces of paper, but sometimes they even managed to allow the prisoners to meet face to face, so they could work on the same testimonies. The way to do that was for the prison guards to take 2 or more prisoners to the bathroom at the same time. There, watched by the Polish guards, they could establish what they would say when questioned, exchange information, determine who to put the blame on, and who managed to avoid the arrest. The same was also done when the prisoners wanted to learn about their family's fate. I already mentioned that women were kept in the other wing, called Serbia, and the prisoners were often called for a medical check or for a dentist, where they received a grips or someone simply whispered the information into their ears. Of course, the members of the conspiracy, thanks to the efforts of the entire network, were able to get the administrative functions in the prison or work as a medical staff, which allowed them much more freedom inside the Pawiak prison and made it easier to convey messages. It also meant they had more chance of surviving. The doctors and medical staff also often brought necessary medicine or treatment for the prisoners against the German orders, so they risked their lives by doing so.
Jak również wbrew zaleceniom niemieckim udzielać pomocy więźniom pobitym czy skatowanym w czasie śledztwa.
As we have seen today, the Pawiak prison is a place of special importance in Polish history. During the 4 years it was operated by the Germans, the level of brutality created an urge for revenge, which finally erupted on August 1st, 1944, the first day of the Warsaw Uprising. I'm your host, Benjamin Lee. I'll see you next time on Poland Daily History.
Hello everybody and welcome to the next edition of Poland Daily Travel. For this series of programs we're going to be in the forest. That's right, the lungs of Warsaw, the Kampinos forest. Here we are on the edge of civilization. The city itself, you might hear a little bit of traffic in the background, in this neighborhood, in the village of Lipków. Yes, we're about 20 kilometers from the center of Warsaw. Right out here. And this is the edge of the forest. This is almost, that's right, 40,000 hectares of forest. That's just a protected forest, which is also a UNESCO biosphere. This is the edge of it. Over there, slowly you go more and more into the city. But from here, we're going to be taking an adventurous run around the edge of the forest to many of the small villages and historical landmarks. In fact, the village we're in was where the wife of the great writer Henryk Sienkiewicz was growing up. I don't know if she was born here, but she was certainly growing up here. So it's here on the edge of Warsaw that Henryk Sienkiewicz set one of his famous scenes, the duel scene from Ogniem I Mieczem, one of his great books, Fire and Sword. At any rate, there's plenty to see. We're going to be taking you on a special tour. I mean, this is a paradise for bicyclists, for people who bird watch, for anybody who's interested in nature. And as I said, it's right on the edge of Warsaw. It also has a huge history, this forest, in the various wars and uprisings that have taken place and involved Warsaw. That includes the uprisings against the Russians in the 19th century. That includes World War I and World War II. There are many, many battle scenes, battle sites, cemeteries, etc. In this area. Not to mention, and not to forget, that is, the wildlife that is just behind us, lurking in this 40,000 hectare area. You can find a lot of different kinds of wildlife here, and that includes the moose, that includes the lynx, that includes lots of deer. There's a lot of horse riding in the park, and many people, of course, are bicycling and hiking through the forest. It's an amazing place. This is the beginning of a very special adventure, a wilderness on the edge of Warsaw. So stay tuned for lots of upcoming episodes from Kampinos Forest.
Hello everybody and welcome back to Poland Daily Travel. We've got a splendid series of programs for you, so just sit back and enjoy the ride as we take you on a magical mystery tour through the Kampinos National Forest on the outskirts of beautiful downtown Warsaw. Kampinos National Park was established in 1959 to protect the unique complex of inland dunes and wetlands, the natural plant communities, and the rich fauna, that's animals, and numerous monuments of Polish history and culture. And indeed, there are some pretty substantial dunes, as you will see. So stay tuned, you won't want to miss that. And did you know that Kampinos National Forest, which is a UNESCO biosphere, is twinned with the Indiana Dunes National Park in the United States? The park covers an area of about 40,000 hectares. And in the park you will find a moose, a lynx, lots of owls, plenty of deer, and even a bear. Just kidding about the bear. And no wolves either, unfortunately. More than 73% of the park is covered with forests. It's a wildlife sanctuary with over 200 species of birds. There are swamps and forests and dunes and beavers and otters, to name a few more animals, along with pine martens, foxes, polecats, and as we said, lynx. And indeed, you might see a wolf. Campinos, the lungs of Warsaw, 40,000 hectares of wilderness on the northwest frontier of Warsaw. It has history, it has beauty, it has mystery. So you won't want to miss this series of exciting episodes from the Campinos National Forest. It was a lot of fun doing it, and I'm sure you're going to really enjoy it. On Poland Daily Travel, your favorite source for travel information about Poland and the best travel programming about Poland that has ever been attempted, that has ever been done, and that you've ever seen. Stay with us. Poland Daily Travel. Why do we do it? We do it for you.
Well, here we are. We're on the grounds of the country house, which is under construction. It's under construction, this country house. You can see it behind me. And it's fantastic. We're on the grounds. I mean, we just found this place. We didn't know exactly where it was. But a lot of tourism and travel is discovery. And that's what we're doing. We're taking you on a discovery. We just asked somebody in the village where this palace was and where the church was. And here it is. This is the Szetkowski family house. And it's being reconstructed, the house. And of course you can see the church. There used to be a museum here. It's closed now. A local person who didn't want to be on camera was telling us, very nice man, was telling us that the museum has been closed for some years. People were stealing things from it, etc., etc. We are on the edge of the countryside here, so I guess you need a bit of security if you have some artifacts, especially related to somebody as famous as Sienkiewicz. But the exciting thing is, one, making discoveries like as we have done to find this place, and two, remembering the scene from Ogniem and Mięciem with Fire and Sword, which was also a movie. You can YouTube it, a movie by Jerzy Hoffman some years ago, maybe 20 years ago or something like that. And in that movie, as well as in the book, there's a famous scene of a duel scene, okay? And this is between Wołodyjowski, correct my Polish listeners, and other people just marvel at my silver-tongued ability to say that, and Bohun. And it took place right on these grounds. So imagine, Henryk Sienkiewicz, a Nobel Prize winner, one of the great novelists, created that scene right here. I can almost feel it's taking place. I can almost hear them fighting. At any rate, let's take a closer look. Come on. The house is from, I didn't say it, the house is from the late 1700s, 1792, I think. You can check me on that, but I believe it is. And this was during the end of the time of the King Poniatowski, and right before the first partition, when this area would have been under Russian control. Anyway, this is the old chapel. The house and the chapel, classicist, with some Romanesque, you can see the arch, Romanesque details. Notice the small window at the top. There's one on the Dvor as well. So it's matching, not just in color but in structure. Very nice. I mean, it's not a huge house, but it's a very nice setting, and it would have been, you know, close enough to Warsaw to get in, you know, in your carriage or by horseback fairly quickly, but yet remote enough to be a countryside place. Very interesting. And here we have, obviously, the local village graveyard, cemetery. And you can imagine how quiet it would have been. We hear the sounds of construction here, but you can imagine how quiet it would have been back in those days. And it really is a nice setting right here on the edge of the forest. Okay, we're going to move on. We're going to move on. We're going to go to the next location because we have a lot of things to see on this road trip around Campinos and eventually inside Campinos. Okay, stay tuned. Poland Daily Travel. Why do we do it? We do it for you. And sometimes it's even watchable.